present just a little bit of stretching for your hips and your hammies and that wonderful supportive lower back. So those parts of our body, we're just going to tune into a little bit to them. Lower back, hips, and hamstrings, and quads, like this whole supportive space that we have in our physical body is geared and truly does so much for us. It is our vocal point for literally keeping our lower and upper bodies balanced or keeping them strong, being able to do the things that we do, and that's a lot. Every single person, there is just so much that occurs throughout our day-to-day life, and our back and our hips, especially hamstrings are right there though as well. Like these are very strong, very capable muscles when given the opportunity to have a little bit of balance between strength and stretch. And when they have that balance, meaning that they are strong, but they are also moved in dynamic and multifunctional ways, you gain that strength and that flexibility, and it helps to prevent at times quite debilitating injuries or prolonged chronic pain. So we're going to go into the stretching, I believe. We're just going to kind of warm up our body first. And so to do that, I'm just going to get you to activate your hands a little bit. And then we're going to slowly shift our body weight forward. So we're going to come into a tabletop position to begin today's class with. So depending on the space you're in, depending on how you're feeling this morning, you can make this as activated or as gentle as you are feeling you need. And again, whether it's this morning or this evening, whatever time of day it is for you, really begin to check in. And so again, just activate those hands. As you activate, you can place it on your body, or you can just kind of tune into how is my body feeling, in what shape, how deep am I wanting to go as we continue to explore how the physical body is feeling in this moment. So the very first one that we're going to do is we're just going to begin to open up through the hip joints, the knees, the ankles. And when we come into tabletop position, again, I'm a huge fan if you need some extra support, meaning you need some extra cushioning under the knees, if you need to change the upper position, lower position, I'll give you lots of variations and you can kind of just play with it as well. But the very first thing we're going to do is come into tabletop, and I'm going to just show a side view. So when you're in tabletop position, you want to allow yourself here to have a little bit of a wider stance than what we would normally do for some of our tabletop. So a couple of things that you can get creative on. You can have those hands quite wide. You can have the fingers rotated away from the body, from the main core body, or again, you can have them directly underneath of the shoulders. However, if your hands are directly underneath of the shoulders, as we continue to go into these stages, into these levels within the pose, it might get a little bit more challenging for your stability and balance. So just a couple of things to be mindful as you're setting yourself up. Next one is the knees. Again, so this one is going to be either knees together, which makes it again a little bit different of a stretch. And again, knees are side by side, feet and ankles are side by side on the floor. Another option is to bring the knees further apart. So whichever ends up working for you. So either one works, and you're going to just changing and modifying those knees and those hands are going to make a difference on how the stretch feels. So to begin with, we just drop the hips, and then we're going to push back with our hands. We're literally drawing a really big circle. Depending on, again, where your body's at and how you're feeling, how big that circle is going to be quite unique to your needs. So as you go through and as you begin to create these circular movements in one direction, whichever one works for you, I'm choosing to bring my knees together. But again, if you want to, you can allow those knees to come apart just for, again, that little bit more stability. And as you're doing this movement, I want you to really lean into how, that's why the hands and the hand placement is so important. How far can those hips go for myself to the left before I feel like I need to drop those hips back towards the heels? And where is those little awakening moments, those little aha or sweet spots in my physical body that's kind of telling me there's some literal tight spots. And I don't know if you can hear, but my hips are doing a lot of creaking and cracking. They're readjusting themselves. We're just going to come back up the center, and then we're going to switch in the opposite direction. So again, when you come back and when you're kind of switching directions, it's a whole new experience. So you go in the opposite direction. A few things that you can do within the micro movements here. You can actually, if you choose to, or if you're in that position where your knees are together, you can choose to push those knees together a little bit. And sometimes that can really help. And as you continue to move throughout this movement, just paying attention. Again, if you need to, you can readjust the upper body. These are all just moves, extra components. I'm a huge fan of making the postures work for your unique needs, not forcing a pose to delegate how you move your body. Okay, it should be the other way around, at least in this particular format or style of teaching, because right now we're just warming up the body, we're tuning in and asking the physical, what do I need right now, right here in this moment? Now I'm just kind of pushing back in the child's pose, and I'm kind of holding it there because there's a really good tight spot there that I needed to kind of release. And then as I come back up to center, we're going to walk those knees back underneath. If it feels comfortable here, we're going to hold off in this position. So again, knees are together, our glutes are sitting back on our heels. And if this doesn't feel comfortable, you can slowly walk those feet apart a little bit, and you can begin to bring a little bit more of a stretch into the quads and the knees by sitting your hips and your glutes down in between the ankles. If that's too much of a stretch for the ankles, you can place a pillow underneath of those glutes or those hips. You can modify, or again, like I said, you can bring the heels underneath, and this is a great posture for the next piece that we're doing as well. Or another option, even on top of this, if again those ankles and those knees are just, that's not even an option for you today, then you're just simply shifting and you're allowing your soles of the feet to kick forward. You want to have your legs activated for this stretch in order to get the benefit. But you want to make sure that your legs are nice and long on the floor. Legs are actually squeezing together, so very activated. And of course, we always want to get hold of that fleshy part of our glutes. So we want to pull them away from the sit bones, which allows us to, with more ease and more intention, be able to get into the hamstrings and into that lower back. If we're sitting on our spine, it prevents us from getting into the actual stretch, and it does more harm than good. So really important to find those sit bones, and you can really take just that one little golden nugget away with you when it comes to anytime you're sitting down for long periods of time. If you're a person that has a desk job, or you're a person that is sitting driving a lot, really pay attention. Always make sure you don't have anything in your back pockets that will cause such havoc for your back and your hips, but just really connecting to those sit bones. So again, I'm going to show this first demonstration with the legs out in front, and then I'm going to bend my knees and bring my feet back underneath me and show you the second version in that way. So with this one, we are just slowly allowing our upper body to go over top of the legs. Now we're keeping the chin away from the chest and opening through the throat, and really focusing on drawing those shoulder blades back. So it's an opening through the throat, it's a lift through the spine. We're not collapsing here. We're lifting, and I'm using or utilizing my fingertips to push into the floor, and ever so gently, but with subtle intention, I'm kind of pushing into the floor and drawing my body forward. And just holding here for a couple of breaths. You can do little micro movements wherever you're feeling like your body needs a little extra awareness. And then continuing to hold here for a couple breaths. I'm just going to right away here switch into the next pose or the next position, which means that I bring my feet underneath. This is another option that you can do if you're in this position. You're leaning forward, and again, you're extended through the spine, you're pushing, and you're just drawing that upper body forward. So you're creating that stretch. It can be for some of us into that lower back, maybe the glutes, if you choose to. Again, all options. I'm a big fan of options. You sit your glutes back and you're pushing your hips into the floor as you're slowly drawing that upper body kind of up and forward. Take a few nice full deep breaths here, just holding and continuously stretching forward and up. Kind of feeling out how the lower back, the hamstrings, in general, just how the body is feeling this morning. One more deep breath in. Full exhale out. And then readjusting here. We're going to readjust, bring our bodies up slowly. Give the feet, if you were sitting on or if you were finding that the feet were to the side, it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to give the tops of the feet a little bit of love there, a little bit of a self-massage, okay? Getting the ankles, getting that circulation. And then I'm going to change the format. So we're going to still be on our knees. Again, for this next one, it would be ideal if you could be on your knees. However, you can still do the same thing with your feet out in front, or you can also do the same intention or pose modified with the legs and split legs. So you can do legs straight out in front or legs and split leg. Straight out in front or split leg, okay? If those knees are just not having any kind of pressure wanting to be put on them. Otherwise, we have the feet together behind us. Again, our sit bones we're going to grab hold of, and we're going to actually place the sit bones on the heels or in that general area, making sure that our spine is nice and supported. Now this one is a really beautiful stretch for the entire spine, and it will work into the areas that are needing it the most. So for some of us, we might be feeling it kind of in the upper spine, the neck and shoulders. For others, and I'll really kind of show a few different angles so you can see the extension. For others, you might feel it in your middle back rib cage. And for others still, you might feel it kind of being drawn all the way down into the tailbone coccyx and that area. So really utilizing and kind of breathing in and filling the space of whatever tension or tightness is coming to the surface. So I'm going to show a front view first, and then I'm going to show you the side view and really extend and try to over accentuate that extension through the spine. So for this one, you bring your arms up and over, and you try to squeeze the palms of the hands together. You want to have them very activated, okay? But we're not going to interlace them. They're going to just stay nice and strong by pushing together, and that's actually going to open a lot in through the lymphatic drainage area. So as you push, you want to, again, depending on where your shoulders are at, you might have a little bend in the elbows. Those are all great. Those are all just parts of your unique body setup. But you do want to try to bring those arms as close in towards the ears or as close in towards the body as you can. Now, as you come into this one, we're going to go into two different stages, okay? So two different variations. First variation, ever so more gentle on the lower back. We're going to bend at the hips, and we're just going to bring the upper body. So again, I'm bending at the hips, and I'm kind of scooching and sliding forward along the floor until those pinky fingers make contact with the mat. Okay, so first version, I'm bending at the hips. I'm bringing my upper body forward, still squeezing my arms into the ears. And then as that pinky finger made contact with the floor, we're going to stretch forward. Now, as you stretch forward, a couple of things will happen. Your face, your head, your shoulders, wherever you're feeling it in your body is going to be activating. So I want you to really stay strong by pushing those hands palms together and extend. Visualize the tips of your fingertips stretching and reaching forward. It's okay if your hips come off your heels. In fact, I want you to play with that part of your body, and I want you to kind of see what it feels like to go a little bit further forward and allow the hips to come off the heels. I also want you to play with drawing those hips back towards the heels and maybe even shift those hips ever so slightly to the left or to the right. So I'm going to demonstrate and hold this position in this way for a breath or two. And then I'm going to come out of it and I'm going to show you a second option if you want to challenge yourself a little bit more and work on that entire core strengthening. So for the tummy, the side body, and the back body. Okay, so here we go. First option, nice and strong in the arms. Okay, chin is away from the chest if you can. As you come down, we bend at the hips first. Come forward. So I'm stacked. I'm not putting any pressure on my spine. I'm stacked. And as I allow the pinky fingers to touch the floor, I stretch forward. I stretch forward, keeping those hands, palms nice and strong. I allow the hips to come up. And then I just breathe and I kind of sink into it. So you can see I'm kind of playing a little bit by allowing the hips to shift to the left or the right. I allow my head to come in between those arms, maybe even getting my nose to touch the mat or to touch the floor. Most important here is keep those hands squeezing together, keep those arms activated. And then I'm going to come up. Now this is a little bit of a strengthening, okay? Activate the core, strong, 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 strong. If that's too much, you can come out of this one by simply bringing the hands apart, and then you're pushing yourself up into sitting. Again, like I said at the beginning, lots of variations. Go with what works for you and your body, remembering there's always the opportunity of challenging yourself more at another time. It's, in my opinion, always a better place to start from gentleness. Allow your body to kind of get a feel for what it needs to be doing first, and then challenge yourself in a second time that you come back to the video or later on as you feel more warmed up. Okay, so just a couple of things to really clarify and really hit home for those of you that want to do the hard right away. It doesn't always matter how strong you are. It's more about what does your body need? I want you to kind of go back to that question, constantly tuning in. What is my body asking for right now in this moment? Second phase, second step. So again, if you choose to, you can go into the exact same one. We're going to do this 2, maybe even 3 times. As you hold in this position, I'm going to change the posture so you can see how I really exaggerate, or I'm going to really exaggerate that movement, that stretch forward. Now the second stage is going to actually be where I challenge my core strength. So this time I'm not engaging as much or not bending in the hip. Instead, I'm kind of stretching forward right off the bat. As soon as I come forward, I stretch, 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 stretch. I'm going to need to readjust myself here. So as I stretch forward, I bring that upper body down. I can take as long and slow as I want. There's a lot of strength here. My core is engaged. My back is engaged. I'm finding out where my unique balance is. Once those pinky fingers touch the floor, I do the same thing. I stretch and I reach forward, nice and strong in the hands, pushing my tailbone back as I stretch those fingertips forward. Allow yourself to really lean into the extension here. Now again, as you really allow that body to go into it, the variation where your hands are stretching forward and your legs are possibly either in this position or this position, just a quick view, you're doing the same thing. You're allowing yourself to go forward, strong, 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 and then you're stretching your body forward. A lot more of a stretch through the hamstrings, by the way, if you're choosing this particular shape for your body. But ultimately, it's all about that stretch forward. Make sure those pinky fingers touch the ground. And again, same thing if you're choosing to have this in this position. Those fingertips might not even be close to the ground if you do choose this shape. Just play with it and allow yourself to really find out where that posture needs to take you. So again, wherever you are, whatever posture you're in, I'm going to choose to come back to this one because I really am feeling it for myself. I'm feeling it in my middle back right now, which is a little bit interesting for me. As I stretch, 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 feeling it in my ribs, and I actually brought my knees a little bit further apart because I'm just feeling like my abdomen needs that space. So again, those little micro shifts that we each do to modify and make sure that the posture is working for our body, not forcing our body to go into the posture. So I'll say that kind of a lot today. As you hold here, you breathe. Breathe into that back body. Breathe into the lower back, the middle back, the upper spine and shoulders. Breathe, breathe, breathe. As you come to a close here, I'm going to challenge you. If you want to, you can bring the hands apart and then slowly push up. Or you can really push those hands palms together. Engage the core, engage the core. You do not lift up until that tummy and back are telling you that it feels supported and strong enough to do this movement. And you come up slowly, 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 slowly. And then you release. And as you release, there's a lot of intention in the release. Push those hands, palms out and away from you as you slowly come down. Ooh, lots of movement in the shoulders there too. And we'll come back to our center here. So give the arms a little shake, allow the neck and the spine to readjust. I'm feeling called to get off and allow those knees and quads to have a little break. So if it feels right for you, just coming into a sitting position and once again grab hold of the fleshy part, find those sit bones, activate the feet once more, draw the toes up towards you, and then point those toes away. Do a couple of movements like this and just see how your body is feeling through those hamstrings, through that lower back. Now, as you're holding here, we're going to do a very gentle twist. So twists are really beneficial for obviously our whole spine, but they really activate, and our cerebral fluid that runs down the spine needs movement and specifically needs some type of twisting movement that's not hunched forward. So there's lots of different movements that we do throughout our day. However, a huge piece, especially if we're in a protective state or there's just a lot going on in our world, that at times automatic kind of self-protection posture is very counterproductive for our spine health. So I'm going to say that in a slightly different way. Our spine health needs to be in a very elongated and very structured, so stacking space for the cerebral fluid, which is different than our circulation, different than the blood that runs through our body. We have our heart that is literal pump that pumps the circulatory system. Our cerebral fluid, though, is also a very important fluid to be going, and it literally flushes the brain. That's where we have the ability, that brain fog or that feeling of brain fog can happen from the cerebral fluid getting stuck or lodged somewhere within the spinal column itself. So if you've ever had injury in the tailbone, the lower back, any part of the spine, and or you notice that you have a lot of buildup in, so a couple of things here, not to go too much on a tangent, but our lymphatic, when our lymphatic drainage spots are really clogged, they actually have a component where they put a lot of pressure on our cerebral fluid as well. And so this combination of allowing the natural detoxing that occurs throughout our body every day, which is so beautiful and wondrous, our cerebral fluid really needs that extra support in order to move that fluid, and that fluid will actually just flush. So it'll flush the brain, it'll help with creativity, it'll help with our hormones, it'll help with sleep and being able to problem solve, be able to handle situations where our mind, we're not going into the automatic nervous system, we're not going into that fight flight. Our mind is looking at the whole perspective, and because that cerebral fluid is constantly flushing and doing its own form of detoxing, it really allows us to, I'm gonna say it's like a tuning in. So that, think of that cerebral fluid as your body's natural tuning in process. When we move the spine, when our spine is nice and healthy and settled, it's going to really help our energy, on our creativity, on how we're sleeping, the quality of sleep that we're getting. All these pieces that I think a lot, especially in this time and in this transition from summer to fall, A lot of us need more sleep. We need that. We're just literally kind of going into that cocooning of taking care of the self, and that's an important feature of the fall. However, another feature that occurs is our posture also tends to reflect that. So really opening through the heart space, and we're going to come into a spinal twist, very gentle spinal twist with a lot of intention. So a lot of understanding, okay, as I move into this, I'm going to visualize this beautiful, and I always look at it as this kind of milky white glowy fluid that is, and at times I can feel that fluid flushing itself down my spine into my tailbone, going back up the spine and up and flushing through my brain, my head. So as I come through this and as I go into this twist, just see what comes forward for you. This is an important part and an important feature of our stretch today. So wherever you are, coming in nice and tall spine. So again, the sit bones are the foundation. They help to create a balance between the hips. They allow the spine to begin to stack one on top of the other in their natural S curve. So everyone's spine is quite unique and different. But as you begin to sit hopefully a little taller, we're just going to allow, so I'm going to do lefts and rights here, but it's going to be mirror image. So that left hand comes onto the outside of that right leg. Okay, if it feels comfortable, activate those feet. So kick those heels forward, draw the toes towards you. Left hand gets a nice tight grip on the outside of that leg. Try not to grab specifically on the knee, just above or below the knee. And then with this hand, we're going to have two options. This hand can either support us by coming nice and close to our hip and kind of encouraging that lengthening through the spine first before we twist. Or if you want to challenge yourself, the same right hand is going to come behind the back, and we're just going to see if those fingertips can reach over to that left hip. Okay, I'm going to choose to bring that hand down, and then I'll probably end up kind of going over as well. So pushing that right hand down into the floor, I lift tall through the spine. I really feel my sit bones, and as I exhale, I pull with this left hand, just guiding that upper body. And again, as soon as I start with the hip movement in the lower spine first, so I rotate through the lower spine, then the middle, then the upper, and the last thing to move should be that upper neck and head if it feels right for you. As you come out, you release. You slowly unwind in the opposite direction. And then before we switch to the other side, common piece, just give your upper body, give your body a little bit of a release. So adjust however you need to. If you need to bring the legs together, allow those knees to flutter. If you want to encourage those shoulders, neck, and upper body just to move, just to create some rebalancing, reshifting within, it's a wonderful time to do so. And then we'll switch to the other side. So again, as we switch to the other side, opposite right hand is going to come onto the opposite outside of the left leg, either above or below the knee. Again, two options. Left hand can come nice and close to the hip, so it's literally helping to extend, especially if that spine is feeling quite vulnerable or it needs that extra support. This can be a wonderful opportunity for it to get that support. If you want to challenge yourself and you're feeling really strong through the core, then that left hand can again just release off the floor, and it's reaching over and behind and trying to reach for that right hip, that right lower back, whatever the case may be. It's just opening up through the chest and the shoulder as you come into that twist. So again, I'll do both options. Left hand is pushing and it's just helping to extend that spine. My legs are activated, so I'm feeling that stretch through the calves and the hamstrings. Right hand comes on the outside of that leg, wherever feels comfortable for you. Find that space. And then inhale, elongate through the spine. Exhale, begin the twist from the hips, from the lower body, from the lower spine first. As you begin to twist, then you include the middle back, then the upper, and then last but not least is the head. As you come out of this one, you come out from the bottom, then the middle, then the upper body, and again, just give the arms a shake, a couple of shoulder shrugs. So inhale, shoulders up towards the ceiling. Exhale, you can either allow the shoulders to come down nice and gentle, or inhale up. Exhale, drop, and allow that to occur in whatever way feels right for you. We're going to come into a very gentle, very think Raggedy Ann doll style release for the upper spine and the lower back. So as you come into this one, I want you to think heavy, and I want you to think, Raggedy Ann doll. So think of a stuffed animal that is able to just kind of flop forward. You allow, again, because our sit bones are still in contact with the floor, hopefully, you allow your upper body just to go heavy and allow the weight of the upper body to go into the hamstrings, the glutes, the lower back, middle back, upper spine, wherever, again, your body is feeling or needing that extra little bit of TLC, that extra little bit of space. You're going to feel it there. So allow whatever is occurring, tuck that chin in towards the chest, let it go nice and heavy. Fascinating piece when we start to work with our spinal column and start to work with that cerebral fluid, our areas in our neck and our head, those areas that can feel very congested for all sorts of different reasons. When you tuck that chin in towards the chest, it's fascinating to witness or recognize what is happening in my shoulders, what is happening through that space where the cerebral fluid needs to kind of go up and back and down through the base of the skull. It's interesting. You can usually, a lot of the time, that's where I feel a lot of sometimes pressure, and it's just that cerebral fluid needing that movement, needing that release. And as I release it, I can kind of almost feel this whoosh, flush that's occurring. So tune into that and see if that's happening, or if there's anything kind of creatively happening in your physical form. So wherever you are in your creative experience and kind of getting to know what, how, and what's going on in your body, taking one more deep breath there. And then slowly walking yourself up, little bit by little bit. Coming towards the front of your mat. We're just going to create a little bit of energy flow here, a little bit of intention to start off or to continue on with our day. This time when the hands come apart, we're just going to bring them to our abdomen, to your tummy, to your knees, to whatever feels comfortable for you. And I'm just wanting to share a little bit on a word that has come up for me and has been a theme a little bit for the last couple of weeks as we transition from the beautiful, connecting, creative, and lots of energy that is summer into that transition of fall, and what is working for us, what isn't working for us, where do we need to take things and possibly bring them inward. Maybe we were expressing them outward, now we need to bring them inward and start to really ask some of those questions, some of those deeper questions. I think this is a really opportune time in the seasons to just really tune into your needs and your wants. And at the same time, recognizing And I know this has been very important for me to remind myself, the self that I am, recognizing that helping and being of service and taking care of each other is such a valuable give and take. There's a free flow there. However, there can also be an interesting imbalance at times, especially for those that feel the need. And I'm going to try to use my words very, very carefully because I want you to hear the intention. Feel the need to be helping everybody, or feel the need to be able to um, I guess guide people, or bring them on a path that you deem is beneficial or right, or any of those ideas. Again, there can be the intention of so much love and so much wanting and encouraging to help. However, I also want you to look at that little golden nugget within yourself of help. Are you helping yourself? Are you giving to yourself first? And I'm going to bring that in even a little bit more. If you're coming to certain stages in your life where you're like, that person should, or there should be, or should, see if this lands for you. As soon as your inner mind, as soon as that ego mind starts to take on the story of should, a lot of the time that is someone else's, not even, and it could be part of ours, but a lot of the time it's not. It can actually be, and every should is more that you are telling yourself a story that comes from a pattern or comes from a person that with someone else's interests, with someone else's theories, with someone else's ideas, and those shoulds can sometimes create a little cavey of I'm just gonna say a little bit of going into the stage of victimhood, which is a pretty loaded expression, but that seems to be what's coming to the surface. So when you keep on using the word should, I love this descriptive because it's such a visual. You're shoulding all over yourself. So that should is almost making everyone else bad, or making you bad, or like those shoulds. Be mindful of that particular power in that word. A should is someone else's intention, someone else's story, someone else's focus or interest level. It is not very often is it yours. So allow other people to have their story and their experiences. This is their human experience to live and to create and to choose the way they want, with of course the love and support of each other, which I think is a really important concept. There is to love and support another human being, even if you have difference of opinions, even if there's a lot of shooting that's coming up. um, we can love someone and truly care about their thoughts and ideas, while also at the same time recognizing, this is where I am, and I'm good with that. I don't need to necessarily, you can voicing ourselves again, coming into the voice, coming into that heart space where you are truly compassionate, which we went into earlier on this week. Heart space leads to a very open, very concise way of expressing oneself. However, if it's going from the head space and that ego brain and that should story, and then going out through the voice and through the throat and speaking our truth, that can sometimes be misconstrued, and it can come from a place of needing to control another human and their experience. And I just want to put that out there. I was feeling very called to try to articulate this in a way that could land for people and just allow them to think about their reality, think about their story. To help another human being can sometimes just stepping back and 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 truly with intention from the heart space, giving them the love and support from a distance. And there doesn't need to be words or actions. There can be. However, if it's not being received with an openness or a kindness as in wanting to have someone help or wanting to have someone's thoughts and ideas, then you're just, it's just a power struggle, and that power struggle, nobody wins. Everybody feels defeated and exhausted, and it feels like you need to be in up in arms, and you need to be protecting yourself on all levels. And so then even the people that maybe are in your life that are just trying to bring some solace, some connection, you're already in guard mode, so you don't even feel or see that. So just seeing how that flows, and I have been observant of even my own self and the desire, and that has been part of, I feel, where I had this little internal push to come forward with these videos, because I desired on a really deep intimate level. I teach students, and I've been teaching for over 20 years, and I've just recognized and realized that it's just so lovely just to offer and allow people to take whatever they need to take. If they choose a couple of minutes, or if something doesn't land, that's okay. That's beautiful. However, how amazing as well just to open it up and allow it to be created in this world that you know, we're all processing. I think we're in a very actively processing stage right now, and that is, there's so much beauty in that. At the same time, I think we also need some space, because each of us process things in very different ways. If we're attacking, or if there's quick rash decisions being made at this time, I am very interested, if that's coming from a space of heart intention, or if that's coming from a space maybe of some fear, or just needing to protect. And again, both of those, heart intention and fear needing to protect, both of those are valid and important. Just maybe tuning in, and maybe some of these teachings, some of this movement can bring more clarity and allow the shoulds that might be coming in our minds, and give them a little bit of a side pause, and reconnect back to the, I am, back to that heart space, back to that connection that will ultimately allow each of us as individuals and beautiful beings that we are, but also to our collective, to our humanity space. I think that has the opportunity of really, really creating some deep healing, or deep heart space connecting, that I think is needed for each and every one of us, whether we're realizing it or whether we're aware of it or not. Thank you, and I'm going to close the session down for now. Do a little bit